Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today my guest is Ian Graham, who has been farming as a whole new career and lifestyle since 2007. A permaculture student since 2000, when he retired from the business world at age 47. A climate emergency advocate since 2014, he calls himself a farmer, post-doomer, boomer, downwardly mobile, neo-peasant, cognizant. I think that's how you put it, right, Ian?
Pretty good.
So Old 99, which is the name of your farm, is a 29-acre permaculture demonstration site and livestock-based mixed farm 5 minutes from the city lights of Hamilton, Ontario. They see themselves as getting ready for the climate emergency by growing local food and farmers, teaching about food security, self-reliance, soil fertility, and ecosystem stewardship. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, greetings. Nice to be here.
So talk to us, Hamilton, Ontario. Remind us where that is again.
That's on the west end of Lake Ontario.
Okay.
Just around the corner from Buffalo. So it's a Zone 6A and continental humid temperate climate.
Okay. Yeah, I know where that is then. So what got you, 2000, what happened in 2000 that got you interested in permaculture?
Probably I met somebody interesting, but that's back in the misty distance of time. But I got online probably and took my first permaculture design course. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was aware of the pending crisis in energy. What we called at that time, we were all many of us thinking about peaking of oil and carbon, the descent of the energy descent in the post-carbon world. But that permaculture became a way of dealing with that design system, a worldview, a global movement to help us all, descend the energy curve gracefully is the way I put it then.
Gotcha. And so then that just kind of got you diving down that rabbit hole. And then I think you said 2007 is when you kind of started making the farm happen, right?
Yep. I was looking for a year or two. I did some sustainable lifestyle symposium with people in 2003, and I went back to school to McMaster to just for the fun of it. Got a master's in religious education. Okay. Became a pastoral counselor, and then I decided, no, I'd like to have I'd like to be on the land. I'd like to be growing food for our people here in the valley.
Okay, so then talk to us a little bit about what you were looking for in a farm.
Took about a year, and I had already done the course once, so I knew some of the features that I wanted. Good quality water, high in the watershed, reasonable topography, some elevation if possible. I've got enough that I could water all my paddocks here by gravity, and good farm buildings. And the piece that I didn't know at the time, but I'd mentioned now, is that I didn't investigate really into what's the agricultural infrastructure, the agricultural community. This is Flamborough County here where I am, a township. It's a township, and it's well equipped with abattoirs, farm machinery, feed houses, and a good smattering of organic farms.
Awesome. Yeah. So you kind of landed in a community that was relatively like-minded and was able to support you with the farm.
You could say.
Yeah. Now you got some pictures. And so I'm gonna go ahead and share those. And so if you're listening to the podcast, you may need to go to our website, thrivingfarmerspodcast.com, and type in Ian, and it should pop right up. But we'll include a video of the pictures so that you guys can see what we're looking at here, because there's some really cool stuff that he's doing on his farm that I want to make sure that you guys see. So this is probably when you bought the farm, renovating the buildings.
This is an old bank barn, yes, and I learned of some Mennonites who were equipped to set up and come and repair these old barns. So this is a 45 by 55 foot square barn, and that's looking east into the old 100-year-old orchard.
Yeah, I see those apples on the trees right there. Those are big trees. Yeah, absolutely.
I pruned them down to about half size now over the years, and there's the same barn looking south, the shop and loft apartment on the right, and the house on the left.
Okay, and then this is that basically looking back at the barn.
Yeah, that's looking west from the orchard.
Gotcha. Absolutely. And then this is that same barn?
Same barn. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the opposite end of it.
All right. So talk to us a little bit about, because I know you've got some pictures here of like putting a pond in. Talk to us about some of the improvements you made on the land.
Yeah. Well, I did quite a bit. I fenced it all. I did some major earthworks for building terraces, and the pond itself was a wet spot when I came the first summer to look at it. And then I said, we're going to dig that out and make it into a permanent pond. It's now about 1 acre pond, 20 feet deep. Just provides water. That's what it looked like before we started. That was the slough.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like now, or?
Yeah, that's what it looks like now.
Wow, that is beautiful. Yeah. And that's during the construction.
There's a couple of shots there of construction. Yeah, there. Yeah. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's ours. Now, these trees, did they end up staying out in the water? Did they end up dying, or? They
died. Yeah. The ones on the left of the picture are down now. The ones on the right have regrown.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting like that. So you can see, yeah, look at that.
But another improvement that I did was, as you can see, there's a bit of contour there. This is, when I came, it was all one field of soybeans. And then of course I had to till it. And then I put a mixed cover crop in for that first winter. And the next year we plowed that down and seeded it as pastures, put 10 paddocks up for rotational grazing for my heritage breed of cow, and planted trees several years later in tree cribs, because I wanted a savanna landscape back there on that ground. This would be the high point there where my arrow is. Well, you can't see that, I don't think.
Yep.
But the high point of that crest is where I put a water tank in, and from the pond up to the water tank is about 5 meters, so 15, 20 feet. I pump water up there, and I've run 2-inch lines down the edge and a spigot for every paddock. So once a week I can pump water with a little gas engine up to that hilltop and water everything, including the front garden, which is about half a mile away.
Oh, very interesting. All right, so that's the hay there. Same area, I think, from a little bit of a different angle. And then these are your haystacks. So
you got those in there. My screen hasn't shifted yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but way back, my gurus to start, my gurus in books were Elliot Coleman, Gene Logston, and Joel Salatin. So this little farm is about the same size as Gene Logston's. He's dead now, but he wrote The Contrary Farmer, way ahead of his time, how to live low impact, and he didn't even put electricity in his barn. He kept a little wee 35 horse Massey tractor, and he said, make your haystacks in the field. Why move the feed into the barn and then have to shovel the manure out? So I did what he told me, and this is what we did. We made these haystacks for the first couple of years.
And that haystack there, so that is basically fence wire in a circle, and then you're putting some vents in that, if I'm seeing that correctly.
The way you put a pole on the ground to hold it steady, and then you build, and then you, as you said, you get page wire fencing, make the hoop as big as you want, 10, 15, 15, 20 feet diameter, and I put it on cribs, skids, so that I'd get air circulation, and I put that irrigation tile up through the center of it, and it's perforated. So I was trying to get air throughout the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're finished, you cover it with a piece of poly, and hopefully you build a crown on it so the water doesn't pool in the center.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I had the pictures backwards. So this is a picture of you starting to make it right here.
Yeah.
And then the next picture is at half built, and then
Yeah.
that's finished building. And then you said that's 2 months later. Very cool. And then would you just graze your cows up near it during the wintertime?
That's right. You put them out in the paddock. They get access to that. They eat through the grass through the page wire fencing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Very cool. Now, another thing I wanted to pull through here. I mean, there's a lot of pictures and we'll get to them here because we're on the hay. Let's talk about your cattle. What what breed is this?
So this is a heritage breed called Lynch Lineback.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unimproved pioneer breed that was used for drayage, for milk, and for beef. They were polled or horned. Mine are all polled.
Mm-hmm.
They have that distinctive white stripe and white belly, hence the name Lineback. And I didn't have a particular reason for picking them, Mike. I just discovered them by chance at the local organic fair, and went and met Robert Lynch, who was the guy who kept this breed going for the last 30, 40 years and breeding them, thinking that maybe someday they'll be a curiosity. And now it's got a herd book, and it's the one of 2 official native breeds to Canada.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. And they a couple, is this one of them too? Because I noticed this doesn't have the white stripe.
Yeah, that one's a Hereford.
Okay, gotcha. And so then on your farm, do you typically just use them for are they a dual use breed for you? So you're going after the milk and the meat, or how do you use those?
They're a dual use for me. I have what's called a cow share arrangement. People own the herd as like a mutual fund. I've mutualized the herd, and so then they pay me to manage the herd, and they come and get their milk.
Very cool. Okay. Now, this is something I wanted to bring up is you have a picture here of your zones, concept zones 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. Talk to us a little bit about what we're looking at here, and maybe you can orient us by where's the high point that you showed us earlier?
Okay. So if you can see my pointer, can you?
I can't, but if you describe it to me,
so it's at the top middle of the picture, which is facing with the top of the page is east.
Okay.
And so the permaculture idea here is you take your property and you divide it into zones. Conceptually, they're concentric zones defined as how often you need to go there or it needs you to go there. So your chicken coop needs you twice a day. So that's going to be in zone 1. Your orchard needs you every few, not very often, and then every day in the fall. So that might be zone 3. Your pastures will be 4, and your woodland might be 5. So so that's what I've got. You get down close to the front on the left-hand side of the screen where the buildings are. You see the one there, and that's my first vegetable garden down there where we were into it every day, and then so on.
Okay, so
maybe that's a 2. Zone 1 is actually the house in the backyard. We always say put your herb garden right at the back door, where you can go and pick a handful. Otherwise, you won't use it.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't do this design. In fact, at least with the way the different colors are for meant different kinds of perennial crops. They were meant to be on contour, to provide forage and silvopasture, shelter and food for grazing animals, maybe also growing crops in between them. At the time, I thought it was too much trees. I needed more open space. I kind of regret it now. In the bottom half of the screen where those squares, light green, are, that's the orchard. I did put the orchard in there, and that's doing well.
Very cool. And so, you can see where they had designed 2 different ponds, and the one you've put in is which one?
Right in the middle of the picture is the actual pond. The one on the right, I didn't do that one. Each pond cost $10,000, so I wasn't gonna. But I really regret not doing it like this picture shows. Very circuitous edge to it. in permaculture, we know edge effect is very important. You get a lot of biodiversity in edge effect.
Yeah.
And I missed the boat there.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've done that differently. Now, I think at the beginning of these pictures, you showed some pictures of your first garden. Maybe is that this
I
right
moved
here?
that into the Kilpatrick folder. I think. Oh, there's one on the right.
Yeah.
That one there. Mm-hmm.
All right. Now I'll go back to that Kilpatrick folder and we'll take a look at that. Yes, right here. This picture right here is the front yard.
That's right.
Okay. And then is it on contour as well, is what it looks like.
Right. So this is a permaculture way of doing things. It's not a production garden way of doing things. There are no straight lines, and every bed is a different length.
Yeah.
But the benefit of it, I like it for the fact that I have grass, turf, medians between each bed that acts as a sponge for holding moisture. But it and so I would, and it's clean to walk on. But it obviously is the source of a lot of weed contamination.
Gotta keep those edges good. And then you have the bigger scale here on the contour. Talk a little bit about this.
That's the location of the orchard.
Okay.
So it's a north sloping, gentle slope to the north, and I'm taking a picture there of the bulldozer carving the swale into the hillside, and I'm going to plant my trees on the upside and the downside of the swale. Swale being basically a flat ditch on contour. The water doesn't flow. It just it sits there so it percolates in. And uphill a little bit, you see a couple of stakes, and where I cut the grass, that's just to mark him, so he knows where to dig.
Gotcha. Okay, so talk to us about the reasoning behind putting your orchard on the north slope.
Well, trees on orchards that have winters, and you're trying to get tender fruit like peaches, you tend to want to put them on the north slope because the cold air will flow downhill to the grass. So any slope will have that effect, but the north slope is going to be cooler. It won't warm up with the sort of the heat sink effect that a south slope will quite as fast. So you tend to not have as much loss of blossom in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, because typically it's the blossoms that you lose because it heats up too fast and they start blossoming too soon, and then they get destroyed. So I remember back in New York when we lived there, we were in a pretty small valley, and the north side of the valley, north slope, so it was the south side of the valley, he would cut his hay 2 weeks later than we did on the north slope because it was the south facing. So it was fascinating to see that. And he would say, I can set my watch, when you guys cut your hay, I'll go get my, hay bine out of the thing and know I've got about 2 weeks. So it's absolutely right. Yeah. Put it on the north side right there. Then I'm assuming this is a picture of later in that season.
Yes. So that's the western aspect. So looking towards the west, that's my home, the first garden plantings that we put in.
Okay.
Quaint. Very quaint.
It's very beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. All right, let's move to the hoop houses because I know that's definitely something. And this is one picture that we've got here. And the cool thing you can see here is these the black pipes coming out of the ground. Talk to us a little bit about the system.
I'm looking at a picture of the site, and it's prepped now. It's been leveled, and the hoops are laid up, ready to build the structure. What you're talking about is an earlier picture I can't see here.
Let's see if I get back to that one. Here it is.
Yep, there we go. Okay, so that was a north slope. We leveled it, and then got a ditch witch and dug trenches because I had a design from the internet from a guy out west in Oregon who had designed and it did the engineering on this underground subterranean or underground heating and cooling system. So the idea is you need to put these pipes in the ground, a certain number of them, to get about 5 air changes an hour in your finished greenhouse. And so what is up in the top right hand corner, you see some big culverts there with already modified with little red connectors. So there, that's going to sit in the hole where I'm standing, and all those pipes get plugged in, just like plug and play.
Yeah.
And then we do the same thing at both ends. And when it's all finished and done with, and the greenhouse is erected, there's a fan. So one end of that where I'm standing, the culvert's going to be in there connected. It's got a stack vertical on one end, and a fan is blowing air underground. So it's taking the hot air in the greenhouse in the summertime and leaving it underground. If you go to the next picture, you can see how we dug those in, and there's one with it finished, I think.
Whoops, wrong
So
way.
you know how it is at the top of a greenhouse, the ridge is always 20, 30 degrees Celsius, so 100. And it's too hot for plants, but you can take that heat and leave it underground, and you make a heat pillow under your greenhouse. So out there today, we had last week we had minus 20. That's like minus 10 Fahrenheit, and inside the greenhouse, the soil was 40 degrees F.
Yeah, which is a massive difference.
Yeah.
Because right now with our greenhouse, we have a 7,200 square foot. It's 36 by 200. And when it's 7 degrees out, when that's 7 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm not quite sure what that is Celsius. It is, it costs $25 a night to heat that greenhouse.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot because we're heating about 38 degrees for that.
What do you want to heat it? Yeah, okay. You want to heat it to get up to air temperature 38?
Yeah. So with your system, we thought about putting in a climate battery, which is what this is, but to put it in for that size, it's going to cost us like 25,000. And I talked to the guys and we went back and forth. We ran the numbers. And so we said, let's hold off for this year. The greenhouse number 1 won't get a climate battery. We'll put a climate battery in number 2 and number 3. So, so I think we will, because now we can actually get the numbers on exactly what it costs us. And then we can look at the payback. And that's when you go for financing. If you can show them, a positive payback, they're going to be a lot more likely to be able to fund that. So,
yeah. I don't have any numbers to tell you on how I use a repurposed furnace fan, a squirrel cage fan, to move that much air around. The full system, which is the part where you'd be more interested, I haven't implemented yet, but the engineer had it figured out to use misting sprinklers overhead inside the greenhouse set, so that you got a phase change, and every pound of water absorbs or releases 1,000 BTUs of heat. So you now can really cool your greenhouse in the summertime when you're otherwise spending money to blow air outside. Yeah.
So basically a misting system that would work really well for us. I've got to try that and see what kind of difference that would bring. So, all right. So I think that was, we showed those 2 pictures of that. And then I think the only other picture was of the overarching. Okay. So here's the 2 structures, right?
That's right.
And is one of them have that system and the other one not?
That's right.
Okay.
So the one on the left doesn't, because I wanted to be able to compare. It's what Coleman would call his cool house, and the one on the right would be the warm house.
All right. And so middle of the winter, when you said that one was 40 degrees, what temperature was the other greenhouse?
It'd be freezing. It'd be below 32.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. That's really awesome that you've got that good data now set up. Another thing that you have here that I want to talk about and look at was this straw bale house in the side of your bank barn.
That was my get go quick in the first winter. Didn't have the greenhouses, so I wanted to grow during the winter. Yeah, so I that south facing wall, I made the end walls with straw, and then just joists and a bit of a knee wall, and covered it all with plastic. The design flaw that I really wasn't, I call this place the farm of how not to do things, because everything has a story about how we do it better. Here, the problem is that the barn wall is not insulated on the inside. It's the same temperature as outside. So any heat gain in my little greenhouse is gonna just go right through the wall. I should have insulated that barn wall.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if that was backed up to, let's say, a living space, that would have actually provided some temperature to help the, build, help the heat that structure. Now, is this a picture of that same area?
That's the one. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Got everything in there. That must be really nice to go in on the I've been meaning to put one on the south side of our house. There's one little section I could do it. And I
Yeah.
think I could get away with it before the city wouldn't say anything. So,
Greenhouses on side of wall of houses are a sweet addition, really comfortable
mhm,
living space, but the humidity needs to be managed.
mhm.
This turned me, this is not here anymore. The
Okay.
story of that is that the cows, it butted into the corral around the south side of the barn. So the cows were in there all winter and they were, curious, and they
Mhm.
finally broke through the plastic and stuck their head. I came in one day and they're on the left-hand side, all those right hand side, oh, those were eaten down, and the cows had their head in the ground in the inside the greenhouse.
Yep. Yep. They were going after it. Very cool. Now, okay, so this is another picture from the outside of that. And it looks like the tape is where you taped up after the cows got after it.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, very cool. Very cool. Um, all right, and then this is your road sign right here, which is cool to kind of see. So it looks like that's how busy is that road?
No, it's not a busy road at all.
Okay.
From the business point of view, I don't have a drive-in trade at all.
Mhm.
This is sort of a U loop off of the main road, which runs parallel to the north, which is on the right side.
Okay.
But the only thing I get on this road are cyclists and a few hikers.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then this picture here is when you planted your orchard, it looks like.
Yes, the orchard is just going in there now in May of 2009.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. I'm just trying to think if there's any other pictures that we need to dive into here. You've got pictures of your produce here. And you've got right there, those are white sweet potatoes. So Japanese sweet potatoes.
They look like peeled potatoes, don't they? With the eyes left on them, but they could be Jerusalem artichokes too that've been
Okay.
washed. I
Okay.
can't remember anymore.
All right. Where are you on your thriving farmer journey? If you go to growingfarmers.com, you can click on our assessment, take our assessment, just a few questions, and what it will do is show you exactly where you are on the 5-stage thriving farmer journey. And what this will do then is give you some next steps, some resources to help you know what to focus on next in your business to move you to the next level with your farm. So let's talk a little bit about that side of the business. Obviously, you've got the cows, you've got the vegetables. Where are your outlets to sell the products?
I do all my sales online through
Okay.
an early version of online e-commerce designed by Eric Wagner in Georgia. You should
Mm-hmm.
interview him actually. He's got several thousand people using his software called Locally Grown.
Okay.
First couple of years we tried to market garden. I just decided it's too much time away from the farm I'm the bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
And so people order online, they come in one day or two and pick up what I just finished picking for them fresh, because the concept is very few people know that their vegetables lose for nutrition quickly the longer they're
Mm-hmm.
stored. So if they're that eager to get them from the farmer direct, let's give them to them super fresh.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's an online site, and um, it has social media capability. It has a blog capability, but I haven't backed it up with a website or like you do. This is one of the things I want to consult with you on.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to take my second and last run at this small scale permaculture farm deal, and I'm going to spend some money and get it upgraded to best of class.
Gotcha.
And I think you're doing quite a few things best of class. I want to just tick them off and say, okay, we're going with that software and
Yeah.
that grade of remay and that size of hoop and that. because I don't have time to experiment anymore. I'm
Yeah.
I'm older.
Gotcha. All right. So then you're selling online with that. Now the cows you said are a part of a cow share, which is really cool that they just come get their milk. And do you try to run that year round so you have milk year round, or is it more seasonal?
I do it year round.
Okay. Very cool. And then do you do what the orchard? What ended up, is that something that you sell the products from the orchard as well, or?
It's supposed to be, but it hasn't been a success. I got
Okay.
too much variety in there. I did it the permaculture way.
Mhm.
Instead of blocks of all the same fruit together, they're easy to manage and pick. I've got them
Yeah.
interspersed with nectaries and nitrogen fixers and who knows what all. And I'm trying to do it organic,
Mhm.
no spray. That's very difficult to do. You can't learn that in even 5 years, I don't think. I use Michael Phillips for counsel on
Mhm.
that. You know him probably.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
but it hasn't ever produced anything of a crop.
Gotcha. All
I've got a
right.
crop for household use and maybe a few bushels, but
Yeah.
nowhere near what it costs to
Yeah.
maintain it, even on an annual basis.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about, because you've been doing this for a while now. Let's talk a little bit about, if you were to go back and start over again, what would you have changed from the beginning?
I would have put my two greenhouses closer, further apart, because the
Hmm.
south one shades the north one. I wouldn't have bought used greenhouses. I would have got the footprint that I wanted. These are 20 by 100s. That's
Hmm.
too narrow by at least 2 feet, if
Yep.
not by 12 feet. Um, I would have, uh, as I just said, put the orchard more in a business like way.
Hmm.
Um, I probably would have standardized my blocks. I'm using the standard block system of Dan Brisebois. You know him. You've
Hmm.
interviewed him.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm trying to learn that real fast. So I would have standardized my blocks. That's an obvious thing,
Yeah.
but back. So now all my drip tape, my remay, my components can be standardized block by block. I have my blocks all over the place.
Hmm.
So it's very. What else would I do? I would put them. I would compact them together like Fortier shows in
Hmm.
his first farm, really dense. And then I probably would have put in um my wash and pack area uh, more. Spent more money on that. It's been a just a make do arrangement um, at the end of a hose now for all these years. I got to fix that.
Yeah, you got to put in a
Those are,
regular space and stuff. Yeah.
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 I probably would have put a walk-in cooler in. I did a reach. I bought a used Coke reach-in cooler, which was big enough,
Yeah.
but now at the end of the time, I should have spent the money up front so that storage would have been much easier. Those are the main
Yeah.
things I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are all good things. Talk to us a little bit about like, the customer acquisition. How do people find out about you?
The cow share they find out of through the realmilk.com site,
Hmm.
which is based down there in Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
um, with the Weston A. Price people. Uh, but they I did your 5-day challenge and I did
Hmm.
the survey and I got 30 responses and most of them said they heard about me by referral, word of mouth.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
that not maybe not most, maybe a good quarter to a third.
Yeah.
And then the internet, people search local organic, and up comes Old 99 Farm, and then they find the website, and then they browse, and then they subscribe, and now I have their address, and now I send them information of what
Hmm.
we're doing, experimenting with, and so those are the main things.
Okay, now that's interesting. You mentioned the 5-day challenge and the survey. Talk to me what else you learned from the survey of what people said.
I was surprised that when I asked them, and I used most of your questions, added
Hmm.
just a
Hmm.
few. What would you like if we offered that we don't offer? And they said strawberries.
Uh-huh.
I did strawberries at the beginning, so like that would now be 10 years ago, 15 going on. Uh, it's too much. It's too much work uh,
Mm.
for a small plot. And my strawberries and my asparagus and my raspberries and my rhubarb my currants are all together in one block, and they're too weedy.
Mm-hmm.
The strawberries succumbed to the weeds. I didn't know enough about mulching, and I don't like to use the plastic. Uh, so um, so I think we're going to try again. We're going to do it better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've got a cider orchard plot in a 20 tree block, and it's got open space in between the trees. So I can use that. I can intercrop there for 5 10 years, 5 years at least.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. We actually have a great training on the strawberries, so I think you could find that helpful.
Good.
Right. I'm just trying to think anything else to ask you, because this is fascinating to kind of see how you developed this from the start, as the permaculture side of things, and then kind of moved around. What would you say is your favorite part of the farm?
Well, I guess I like the cows.
Mm-hmm.
I like the cows and the milk part of it. Um, you got to milk them every day, of course. But when they're on pasture, we go out and we milk on pasture. We've got a mobile milking station. It runs off a little gas engine on the back of a 20-horse tractor.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful every morning when the sun comes up. So that's my favorite part of the farm. To the next step, what's my worst part? My least favorite part of the farm? Those parts have gone now.
Gotcha.
I had sheep. They're a pain in lambing time, and they don't make any money for you. They're nice eye candy. I had bees. I for my scale, I have somebody else bringing hives on now. Back then, I was going to make a little enterprise out of it, but make those 70-pound bee boxes are really hard on the back. And I had geese and ducks, and they have really shitty way of walking around and pooping everywhere, and you couldn't walk barefoot, so I had to get rid of them. So I've centered it down to laying hens, meat hens on pasture. They're very pleasant. That's not a lot of work. It's good economics for meat chickens, as is eggs. I'll just like to say this for the listener, why they watch this, who knows, but I'm not your typical younger person trying to get and think they want to make a living at farming. I had my business career done, and I had my savings, and I said I want to get it out of the market and put it into land and a lifestyle. So this is lifestyle farming, not certainly it's not hobby farming. It's not like collecting stamps. You're working pretty too hard for that, but it's not a livelihood farm. I suspect when the shit hits the fan on the climate crisis, we're going to have lots of people just being happy that they've got shelter and food, and a very important network of friends and relations that they can swap and trade things with. So that's where I want to be a hub here in my valley of people who can, first of all, come and learn those things and meet friends, figure out what they can do in urban retrofits and urban agriculture. But for anybody who's listening, the way I did it, you can't make a living.
But you gave yourself, you kind of insulated yourself in case, as you said, things happen. You've got a very insulated place where people are going to want to come and hang out.
And my family's grown up and and gone in their own careers. So this is their home base, their safe harbor if things get bad. But also, I could say that I'm trying to disengage from the cash economy. I don't need a wage anymore. The farm carries itself, so it makes that much money. But if you're starting up a farm, let's say you get land some way or other, never mind that hurdle. But now you're on the land. You got to make a wage for you and your family. You got to put money aside for your kids going to school. I don't know how you do it on like this with so many different enterprises.
Yeah.
If it was 20 acres of vegetables, Michael, you might say you could do it.
Yeah, well, it really comes down to the enterprise and how you stack those enterprises and which ones work and which ones don't, and your context. Because like looking at your pictures, vegetables aren't a great fit on scale because of the hills. But the cows work great. The orchard works great. You got plenty of water. Aquaculture isn't a huge thing, but it'd be interesting to see, if you were able to stock that with something Maybe it's just recreational fishing. People want to come out, and if it's a 1 acre pond, 20 feet deep, there's a fair amount of water in there. So anyway, obviously there's all sorts of things you could brainstorm and try to figure out, but yeah, it comes down to, the crops you decide that make fit sense for your location. So.
Well, just in closing, say I look forward to this conversation we're going to have next on the meter,
Yeah.
because it's still not too late to bail. I'm trying to ramp up with Danielle's system of organizing doing your crop planning, and I'm going to go out and get a couple of restaurant accounts, and maybe a small greengrocer account. So that I'll try to sell $30,000 of product here out of 4,000 row feet of space.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, looking forward to that. But Ian, great to have you on the podcast and chat about these things and kind of like what you're doing and how you've set it up. And it's always interesting to get a different perspective on here. And just, I think a lot of people, because, I think there is a lot going on right now. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, I really do want to unplug a little bit, or, just be more responsible. Yesterday I posted a picture online, which it's something that I'm seeing myself as you go into a grocery store and there's empty shelves, and that scares people. And it's a combination of, not being able to get supplies, not being able to get labor to stock the shelves, people being out sick. And so you look at all those things stacked together, and it really causes some consternation. So, being able to unplug and have that kind of space to go back to is super important. And like one of the things I noticed is you had solar. I think, I frequently don't really push solar on people because I'm like, well, the real payback on that, unless you can get the government grants, is not great. But the security of it is another huge aspect. And obviously, if you can have a specific system big enough to do your basic needs and you can unplug from the grid, that is a huge advantage that, definitely, I think it'd be really advantageous for a lot of us to think about. And again, if you have the opportunity for hydroelectric, even if it's super small scale, that can be incredibly powerful because that can do 24/7 typically, and solar's only during the day. But there's all sorts of opportunities out there. And it's good to see the stuff that you're doing on your farm.
Thanks for having me on. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, Thriving Farmers, have you checked us out on YouTube lately? We have a bunch of new content there, including a few rants by me. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss them. I actually go rant about, some of the problems I see in our space and some of the challenges I see farmers facing. So go check that out. We've got instructional videos over there as well. Talk about setting up our new farm here in Ohio and all the steps we're going to do that, as well as just tutorials and tips on best practices for all sorts of things on the farm. So go ahead, check over at Growing Farmers on YouTube and see the new content we put together for you. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.